It's been 75 days since the release of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and you're probably ready for Link's next adventure. That seems to be the calculation behind this week's Nintendo Switch Online update, which gives us not one, but two 8-bit Zelda classics. That's right, subscribers currently have access to both Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons, both originally released on the Game Boy Color. That's exciting news, but are either of these games actually worth playing? To answer that question, I decided to flip through the pages of Electronic Gaming Monthly, Game Pro, Nintendo Power, and more classic magazines to see what the critics said back when these games first came out. So take this, because it's dangerous to go alone in this Zelda-filled episode of the Nintendo Switch Online Review Crew.
Returns to Game Boy Color in an adventure too big for just one game. Rated E for everyone.
Get into it!
After releasing what Next Generation called the Game of the Century, and then following it up with a divisive yet critically acclaimed 3D sequel, what are you supposed to do next? If you're Nintendo, you go back to the franchise roots and publish a pair of 8-bit adventure games that may look a lot like the classic Zelda sequels, but have enough modern gameplay ideas to keep the journey fresh over the course of 2 lengthy cartridges. This was the promise of The Legend of Zelda Oracle of Ages and its follow-up, Oracle of Seasons. It was a reminder that while Nintendo may be pushing the franchise in new and revolutionary directions, they aren't afraid to give old-school fans a couple more traditional installments on the aging Game Boy Color, a dynamic you still see to this very day. Now, if you were worried that the critics might have whiplash going from the 3D adventures of Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask to Oracles of Ages, don't worry, they're fine. Most actually welcomed the change of pace. Electronic Gaming Monthly ended up giving the game an average score of 9.5 out of 10, with Chris raving that it's a must-own adventure. It's amazing when one Zelda game makes it out every 2 years. It's a dang miracle when 2 old-school Zelda games get released on the same day. It's not like each is half a game. These are full-length action RPGs. John also loved the Oracle series, though noted that Ages is his personal favorite, thanks to the more thought-provoking puzzles and the SNES Zelda-esque world design. The dungeons are hardcore, the new items are sweet, and even the music is inspired, despite half of it being ripped directly from Link's Awakening. He concluded that Ages is one of the most satisfying Game Boy Color experiences ever. For their part, Game Informer matched EGM by giving Oracle of Ages a score of 9.5 out of 10, Computer and Video Games was also high on the game, giving it a 9 out of 10 and naming it one of their favorite games of the year. The highest score I could find came from Nintendo Power, who gave Ages a perfect 5 out of 5. Chris called it one of the best games ever for the Game Boy Color, while Drew agreed with EGM, arguing that Ages is more fun, difficult, and satisfying than Oracle of Seasons. Andy also loved the game, saying that nothing humbles a player like a Zelda game. I had to use the player's guide just to get through the second dungeon. Personally speaking, I wouldn't say it's that hard. In case you're curious, Game Pro gave Oracle of Ages the lowest score, giving it a mere 4 out of 5. They complained about the gameplay and how limited it felt going back to a 2-button system. They concluded that Oracle of Ages is reminiscent of the classic NES Zelda, both in graphics and sound. From a top-down view, you explore colorful and imaginative lands filled with fanciful creatures that dance in patterned attacks, while the upbeat music score is nicely varied and perfectly sets the tempo of the game. Considering the lack of quality Game Boy Color role-playing games, Oracle of Ages certainly fills the void. And with the ability to pair with Oracle of Seasons, you'll double your pleasure in Link's newest quest to save his world. In other words, they liked it. And you will too. And that's why you should jump into Oracle of Ages on the Switch. Before we dive into the second half of the Oracle series, let's first take a moment to appreciate Nintendo's ability to not only keep the Game Boy alive for a dozen years, but also to keep it relevant. Sure, it took a couple of major revisions in the 1990s to get there, but even a Game Boy hater like Sushi X has to be impressed by the little portable that could. Oracle of Seasons comes right on the heels of the Game Boy Advance, making it something of a swan song for the 8-bit Game Boy Color. And really, what better way would you want to go out than to have two brand new Legend of Zelda games ready to remind us all of the Game Boy's greatness? You wouldn't want it any other way. Now, as you might expect, Oracle of Seasons was reviewed by the exact same magazines and critics that reviewed Oracle of Ages. After all, if you're going to review one, you might as well cover both, right? In fact, almost all of the reviews were found in the exact same issue, usually on the same page. Nope, it's not deja vu, it's just an Oracle of Seasons review. Let's go ahead and start with Electronic Gaming Monthly, who gave the exact same average score of 9.5 out of 10. Mark couldn't contain his excitement. 2 new awesome Zelda games in 1 month? Hallelujah! Graphically identical to Ages, Seasons has a bit more of an action slant to it, but it's still puzzly enough to earn my love. Old school Zelda fans will love the familiar gameplay and all of the references to the earlier games. And the link-up feature? Kick ass! As if any 2D Zelda fan needed more reason to play both games. Chris agreed with me that the Oracle series was a great way to finish out the Game Boy Color. Unlike Pokemon, where there are 2 versions of the game, but you really only need one to get the experience, everyone needs both of these games. They share some common themes and characters, but are totally separate quests. I can honestly say I have no complaints about this game or Ages. Once again, Game Informer gave Oracle of Seasons a score of 9.5 out of 10, while British magazine Computer and Video Games stayed with their 9 out of 10. Nobody changed their scores between Ages and Seasons. That goes for Nintendo Power, who's the only magazine to actually split up the reviews across 2 issues. Giving it a perfect 5 out of 5, Alan described Seasons as if Link's Awakening and Ocarina of Time had a kid. George loved the perfect play control, Oliver noted the N64 Zelda elements, and Drew accurately noted that if you're a fan of Zelda, you won't be disappointed. You know who was a little disappointed though? That's right, it was GamePro. Giving it a 4 out of 5, they warned that some may find it a little dated. They ultimately concluded that the Game Boy Color weathers Seasons well. The graphics are bright and colorful, and the tiny characters and simple animation are surprisingly expressive. The Game Boy Color never really emits pleasing sounds, but the familiar tones and songs of Zelda squeak through the tiny speakers nearly perfectly. The simple control scheme easily gives you access to all the tricks in Link's bag. Occasionally, however, you'll tire of flipping through the menus. The story and challenge of this Zelda adventure fits right with the rest of the Stellar series, making Oracle of Seasons one of the most gripping handheld games you can play on the old Game Boy Color. Let's just hope that Link's next outing is a little more advanced. Yeah, that 4 out of 5 is making more sense with every word. While GamePro may have moved on, I'd say that Oracle of Seasons is worth going back to, especially if it's your first time playing it. Yeah, you're in for a wild ride.
Game Boy Color.
ゼルダの伝説、不思議の木の実大地の章。それは季節の乱れた世界の冒険。四季を操り大地を進め。ゲームボーイカラーゼルダの伝説、不思議の木の実大地の章。時空の章と同時発売。伝説はつながってゆく。
Hey, thanks for watching me break down these Zelda reviews. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new episodes every single time Nintendo adds classic games to their service. We have a whole playlist with dozens of these episodes, so go ahead and give it a binge when you have a chance. Now, here's the question I have for you. What's your favorite 2D Zelda game? Is it one of these Oracle games, or maybe Minish Cap, or are you like me and it's just real basic with Link to the Past? Let me see your picks in the comments below. In other news, we're probably going to be back tomorrow with my first review in like a month. Look, I know, I've been slouching, but things have been real busy here at the Defunct Games office. While you wait for that, I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then,